Okay, so I was scrolling through YouTube. I found this video. I get a lot of older videos from like FS1, ESPN, dating back 4 to like 9 months, as as early as 9 months, and but usually they're videos involving the NFL. They're usually during the playoff run, but and a lot of times I'll give these videos that I've never seen before. So this is one of these videos that I haven't seen before, but it was a conversation of Tom Brady and a conversation of Muhammad Ali, and a conversation of Tiger Woods, and and a lot of times when we have these conversations and conversations involving Tom Brady, people will take the word athlete and they'll put their definition of what an athlete is, and a lot of times it's them trying to find a way to eliminate Tom Brady from the greatest athlete conversation, and even if it's just the NFL, and they find ways. Well, can Tom Brady run the 40-yard dash? Can he bench press, like 350 pounds, 10, 15, 20 times? Can he do all this stuff? And they try to use his combine as a way to disqualify him from the conversation of, greatest athlete in any conversation. They tried to eliminate him using that old adage, I guess. And I believe I said on this channel before that a lot of times when you see these older NFL players who played during the run of the Patriots, a lot of them seem very bitter. Like Tony Gonzalez right there. Tony Gonzalez is, he's a Hall of Fame tight end. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs, the Atlanta Falcons at a very, very high level. Played, I believe, 17 years. He was just one of the greatest tight ends of my generation, and he comes across as very bitter. Because a lot of these players who used to play, they're jealous of Tom Brady because of his extreme amount of success and his extreme level of focus. And with football being a predominantly black sport, and for this guy, this white guy, Tom Brady, to just be able to surpass any kind of athletic disadvantages he may have and be able to just still succeed nonetheless, it frustrates them. This is why a lot of times when we talk about Tom Brady in the greatest conversation whenever, it's usually with us disqualifying him because he is just a representation of something that we probably will never be able to reach. I don't think we'll ever see a run like this, like the Patriots are having right now. I don't think we'll ever see another run like this again. In a 20-year span, I don't think we'll ever see it again. I don't think we'll ever see a quarterback come along like Tom Brady and be able to not only throw a franchise on his back and just run with it, but it's incredible what we're witnessing. And if I wasn't a major supporter of just Boston sports in the way that they conduct a lot of their business, I mean, I don't know. You just gotta, when we're in the midst of dynasties, you have to just marvel at. We may never see something like this again. Like, with the Warriors. I mean, we may never see anything like this again, especially with free agency being as mobile as it is, contracts changing every year. We may never see something like this again. So it's incredible to just witness and, be alive to see. But I'm gonna let him talk. I've been talking for over 4 minutes. I'm gonna let him talk, and I'm just gonna, just throw my opinions in here and there.
Marcellus, I will start with you.
Yes, sir, yes.
Fair comparison, Ali and Tom Brady. Ah,
And before Marcellus starts this, I saw a little bit of this video. I think I saw up until Tony started talking, and I decided that I wanted to do a video about it. But during the conversation, they kind of take this comparison, and I'm not gonna say what Marcellus Wiley because he kind of surprised me with what he said, but they kind of took this conversation and they started to turn this into a racial thing, where they started talking about Tiger Woods making golf accessible to the urban community and things like this, and which has no bearing on the conversation. I mean, sure, you have trailblazers, and that's fine, that's great, but when we're talking about greatest athletes, you got to exclude the racial aspect of it. You have to exclude the racial aspect of it because Tom Brady doesn't fall under those guidelines. So he'll always lose that argument. And this is why they make those arguments.
Um, God, let's start with the greatness comparison. He's the greatest athlete of this generation. Yes, I'll have to agree with you. No argument there. Yeah.
Well, if all things are equal in all sports, and we're talking about some of the individual sports, tennis, you brought up, boxing,
You talk about golf.
for Tiger Woods, and then you talk about basketball, and obviously football. I have to give the edge to the football great over any other sport
Just because it's much more difficult to win that
championship because you are dependent upon so many more variables and individuals to help you achieve that success. So in football, you can be the greatest quarterback, Dan Marino, and then look around and you don't have all the other great parts, and
you may not have the greatest assets supporting you, and then next thing you know, you don't win that championship.
and then you do take that demerit. So,
Just to go off of what Marcellus Wiley is saying, and I 100% agree with him and everything he's saying. There was not one part about anything he said that I disagreed with. Now, when you look at Tom Brady's numbers, when you look at his record, when you look at his postseason record, when you look at his postseason numbers, when you look at his Super Bowl record, when you look at his Super Bowl numbers, there are no negatives in his career that I can see that can be used as valid evidence to say that this dude, he cannot be one of the greatest athletes of all time. Because when we talk about athlete, we're talking about professional athletes. So we're talking professional players of any sport. It doesn't matter. You could be a damn kicker. You're an athlete. Because there's such a small number of people that can do what you do. Not everybody else can be that. Now, if we want to start turning the word athlete and we start categorizing athletes, then who falls under that? Who falls under that umbrella? Because Peyton Manning wouldn't qualify. Drew Brees wouldn't qualify. There are things that, sure, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, there's stuff they can do that Brady can't do. But there are things that Brady have done that they have never done, and they probably won't ever be able to get to that level, ever. And I'm not saying, this is pretty early in Patrick Mahomes' career, and he has to be one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL today. But that does not always translate to success, on-field success. If we look at the Kansas City Chiefs last year, they were the best team from beginning until they lost in the playoffs. And two of those losses that they had, I believe they lost, 4 games last year? 2 of those losses came against New England. Although Tom Brady may not be the flashiest player, although he may not be the most super athletic player, although he may not be able to just make plays outside the pocket consistently, this dude is so great at what he does. And there are players who are far better athletes than him that he constantly just eliminates them. Some may say that, Donovan McNabb was a fairly good athlete. He beat him in the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson beat him in the Super Bowl. He's beaten Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there are times where athletic ability isn't everything. And we look at it now because all our quarterbacks need to be able to scramble out the pocket. They need to be able to throw on the run. They need to be able to extend plays. That the quarterbacks that don't do that or can't do that, we put them on a shelf lower than other ones. They can have all the credentials, they can have all the stats, they can have everything. Tom Brady has passed for 70,000 yards in his career. People talk about Brady like he's just a postseason performer. I mean, this dude plays out of his mind during the regular season. He may not put up gaudy numbers like an Aaron Rodgers or, Peyton Manning, but his numbers is great every year, consistent. He's passed for 70,000 yards, which is, not too many quarterbacks have passed for 70,000 yards. And he's an all-time winner. So I don't know, man. When we start classifying what we consider to be athletes, who can be a part of that conversation? I mean, if we're talking about the greatest athletes in NFL history, and I'm using the definition that these guys are, then Michael Vick is better than Tom Brady. Randall Cunningham is better than Tom Brady. I mean, it's a slippery slope and a fine line when we start having this conversation and we start throwing our definitions of what words are. There should already be a predetermined definition of what that is, and we should go with that. Sorry about that. And we should go with that. But, also what Marcellus Wiley said was, football is a very hard sport to be able to consistently get the job done. And Brady has proven that he can get the job done. Also, another thing, and I've said this before, man, Tom Brady at Michigan, before he even got to the NFL, he was doing a lot of what he's doing now in Michigan. I mean, he wasn't even the consistent starter in Michigan, but when they would throw him in the game when they needed him, he would step up and he would get the job done. And I believe his last year at Michigan, he won the national championship. I could be wrong, but I believe that I saw that in the documentary where he did win the national championship. But, I don't know. And I don't want to take away from what Belichick does. But this is why I say Belichick and Brady, they work so well together. They complement each other so well. You can't really say one is greater than the other.
Tiger Woods comes to mind as a close second, obviously Ali, but what Tom Brady has shown by his career record, and that career record is with so many moving pieces, and he still is the one constant that, as you said, football is a great game of skill, a greater game of will. For whatever reason, he has willed not only the Patriots, but he's willed his coach into being in the discussion as the greatest coach ever. When his coach as a head coach was a losing head coach before Tom Brady stepped on the field. All those things considered, I'm with you.
Bill Belichick, in my opinion, is one of the greatest strategists I've ever seen in professional sports. Me personally, what I've seen, I'm not saying in the history of the game, but as far as I've seen, he's the greatest strategist. Being able to take what players do well and being able to devise a game plan that complements every player on the field to get the most out of every player on the field is impressive. But if we go pre Tom Brady, sure they got to the Super Bowl and they lost to, I guess, the who did they lose to? The Green Bay Packers. Sure they got to the Super Bowl. But there's a difference between getting there and winning it. And they didn't win until Tom Brady got there. His first year starting, they won the Super Bowl.
What you with? Tom Brady's the greatest.
Go ahead, Rambassador. Man.
And again, like I said before, man, you see a lot of older players. You see a lot of players former players who Well, Eric Dickerson didn't play during the era of Brady, but he's one of those die-hard fanboys who was a former player, but his love for the team that he played for is so strong that it just carries. It lasts even after they finish playing. And Eric Dickerson is one of those guys.
Come on, dog. Me too.
You too. Look, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback. I'm gonna give him that. I'm a Joe Montana fan. He's the greatest quarterback. But when you put him in the same breath as Muhammad Ali, that's
different. I mean, Ali's in a class.
And I agree that the comparison between Tom Brady and Muhammad Ali isn't really a fair comparison because there's no way to quantify the value with the sports, let alone the individual, because boxing is an individualized sport. Football is a team sport. And, it's really hard to be able to compare the two when even the sports are just so different. And now if boxing was more of a team sport, maybe you could have a valid reason to compare, but it's just not the same. So I don't really think it's a fair comparison. And neither is a golf comparison. But Tony Gonzalez is going to take this. I think when he starts talking about Tiger Woods, he's going to start taking it to a racial aspect that doesn't need to go there because Tom Brady will lose that argument every time.
All by himself. We're talking about in the ring, in the field of competition. I understand that. Without Bill Belichick, Tom Brady's not Tom Brady. Without
speculation, there is no fact. There is no evidence to prove that. And people make that argument all the time. Oh, well, if Brady would have went somewhere else, or if, the only way that you can say for a fact that Brady wouldn't have been as good as he is now is if he was never drafted. Because to be honest, if the New England Patriots wouldn't have drafted him, I don't think anybody would have took a chance on him. And I said I don't think. I didn't say that I know for a fact. Because there's no way to know something like that for a fact because it's never happened. The only time that we've seen New England since Brady's been drafted and he started. The only time we've seen New England without Brady is when he missed a huge chunk of the 2008 season, 9 season, and he missed the first 4 games a couple years ago. And New England played relatively well, but that's the impact of a extremely strong culture in the locker room, great coaching, and just everybody being able to do their job. But Brady is one of those guys that without him, your team is maybe a 10, 11 win team in a good year. But with him, you're a 12 to 13 win team and potential Super Bowl participant. So I don't know, man. It's hard to make that argument, bro.
No, I don't think he is. I mean, if you put, but that's a lot of ifs. It's like you put Tom Brady in Cincinnati. Is he the Tom Brady we know without Bill Belichick? No, he's not.
And you can make that same argument for Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick if he would have stayed in New York with the Jets, are we looking at Bill Belichick as one of the greatest head coaches of all time? And that argument could be made for anybody. If T.O. stayed in San Fran, could he help that team get back to his glory time where, they were a Super Bowl winner? Or if T.O. would have stayed in Philadelphia, could they got the job done? If Michael Vick would have stayed in Atlanta, could he potentially propel that team to a Super Bowl? Because one of the last years Michael Vick was in Atlanta, they went to the NFC Championship game against Philly and they lost. I think 20-7 was the score, but they lost. So if Michael Vick would have stayed in Atlanta, if he wouldn't have got caught with all this dog stuff, if he would have stayed in Atlanta, could he gotten that team to the Super Bowl? And these arguments could be made for anybody. I mean, what if Peyton stayed in, Indianapolis? Where does Andrew Luck go? If RG3 would have never gotten hurt, would he have been at that point where we all believed that he was going to be? And I mean, like, this argument could be made for anything, so it's not really a valid. That's not a valid argument, man.
I think about you say.
What was New England before Brady?
Yeah, and what was Belichick?
Thank you. But in defense of New England did go to 2 Super Bowls. Now, although they went to 2 Super Bowls, they did lose both of those Super Bowls very embarrassingly. I believe they lost by like 30-something points to the Chicago Bears in the 80s, and I believe they lost by like 20, maybe 30 points to the Green Bay Packers. So,
Check before Brady as a head coach. Had they been to Super Bowls before?
They had. The Bengals.
now a great retort to that would have shut his argument down would have been, have they won a Super Bowl before Brady got there? Because I think that's a far more important point than what he's trying to make. Did they win one? It's not about getting there. See, people is just so satisfied with getting somewhere or doing, attempting something instead of actually getting the job done and making it happen. And this is why Brady is just on a different level, because it's not good enough for him to be there. This dude wants to win, and you can see that.
Had they been though?
Yeah, so okay, you didn't come to me though. What was Belichick before? I'm sorry.
He was a young head coach, but can I pick
Yeah, he's a young head coach. Great defense, man. Great defense. He was a young head coach when Brady got there. I mean, and another what if that is very popular. What if Drew Bledsoe didn't get hurt? Do we ever see Tom Brady? Does Tom ever get on the field?
6 years, 7 years, which means young. 6 years.
And subsequently, if Tom Brady never gets on the field, do New England ever win the Super Bowl? Because although I think Drew Bledsoe was probably one of the top quarterbacks back then, that, earlier in the 2000s, I believe he was one of the top ones. Did he have the resolve? Did he have the game to be able to win a Super Bowl for New England? I think that's a far better question.
Can I finish?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ram Bastard.
Time to ramp out. We're talking about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods revolutionized golf. He changed it. He changed the way we as black.
All right, I was mistaken. It wasn't Tony Gonzalez. It was Eric Dickerson. You can't make a racial argument when you can't make a racial argument in favor of black people when one of the guys that is supposed to be in comparison is not a man of color. You can't really make that argument. It's not fair. He will lose that argument every time. Now, if we're making this argument for somebody else like a fucking Warren Moon or somebody like that, that's different. But you can't make that argument when Tom Brady is the other comparable. You can't really make that argument, man. I'm sorry.
Athletes look at golf. A lot of us, man. True. I'm like, golf, man. Don't watch no golf. Nobody want to watch golf now.
Still to this day, I don't watch golf. I mean, I just don't. I don't have an interest in it. Now, I do follow golf stories. That's different, but I don't watch golf. And me following golf stories, to be honest, I mean, Tiger Woods is probably not even my favorite golfer to watch. I don't even think I have a favorite golfer to watch, but I don't watch a golf tournament just because Tiger Woods is there. And I am a man of color, so, what the fuck is this argument supposed to mean? This is the point I'm trying to make. I mean, people want to make these racial arguments because it's supposed to legitimize whatever, point they're trying to make, but it's not. So,
I can't wait to watch golf. Can't wait to watch Tiger Woods.
Listen, I've been raised around a lot of brothers. I've never seen one guy say, you know what I'm doing this weekend? I'm just going to lay back on Saturday. I'm going to watch this golf tournament. I've never heard one dude say that. I'm sorry. So this argument doesn't make any sense to me. But, maybe there is somebody out there that, does. They're looking forward to a tournament on a weekend or some shit. I don't know.
Would you even change the pay scale of golf? Even the golfers talk about when I'm out there playing, even in the pro-am.
All right, I understand the point he's trying to make there, But does golf have a salary cap? Like, what the fuck? I mean, it's different. You can't you can't compare individualized sports to team sports. You can't do it. It's just different. It's different.
The candidate said, man, you can say what you want.
Hey,
you might not like Tiger. Hold on.
I was right there.
Hold on, let me finish. You might not like Tiger. He said, but Tiger has changed the way that we get paid. And he's changed everything.
I was right there.
Were you right there?
Until Thanksgiving 2009.
Then
Thanksgiving.
Then-
Tiger Woods got clubbed by his wife, and he ain't been the same
Hey,
since.
we get your teeth knocked out.
Changes everything. What are you talking about? Because this question, first of all, Belichick, I think he deserves a lot more credit than what you guys are giving.
He does, and this is why I never say Brady saved Belichick's career or he made Belichick relevant. I always say they complement each other well because I've said this before. If you look at Brady and if you look at Belichick and the way they communicate when they're together, they're the same person. They're almost identical in the way they work. I mean, and that's the perfect marriage when you have two people who think alike with like-minded goals. It has to, it will work. And, there are different levels of success. And anytime you have two people like that, it's just successful. Even if the results aren't as successful as people would like them to be.
His record without Tom Brady, when Tom Brady went down for that season, when Matt Castle came in.
Hey, see, he already had.
But they missed the playoffs. So what is the point you're trying to make? You're trying to say that this team will win without Brady anyway, but they didn't even make the playoffs that year. They won 11 games, sure. They won 11 games, sure, but they still missed the playoffs. Brady missed the playoffs one time in his career where he started from beginning to end, and that was his second year starting in 2002, I believe. That's the only time he's missed the playoffs. He's made the playoffs every single year he started at quarterback. He started for most of his career. He missed 2 seasons, and both of those times, Jesus Christ, he didn't miss 2 seasons. He missed the playoffs in 2 seasons. I'm sorry, and both of those times, I mean, it just was complicated. Like, you could say that in 2002 they were still working out the kinks, and in 2009, I believe, they just he was the victim of targeting by Bernard. What the fuck is his name? I can't think of the guy's name. It's the safety who just was putting out New England players left and right. I believe he was the one that injured Gronk, and I believe he was the one that put out Wes Welker. And yeah, that dude was an asshole. But this is not a good argument, bro. You're already not starting off well.
That thing rolling.
Yeah, what are you talking about? First of all, they did well.
He's not the greatest athlete of this generation.
No, I don't. First of all, what are you talking about, athlete? Okay, can he come and he? Have you seen him run the?
Here we go. Run the 40. Run the 40. Oh, he won 6 Super Bowls, but can he run the 40-yard dash? Because somehow in my mind, that is more important than winning Super Bowls. Is how well can you run the 40-yard dash? Okay.
40. There we go. Have you seen him dance on Jill?
He said, how well can he dance? Like, what the fuck? Bro, what does that have to do with the NFL, man? Like, what the fuck? I wouldn't even entertain this conversation with Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez sounds extremely crazy right now.
I'm talking about, okay, what do you mean athlete? I thought he meant
and then he have his cheerleader over there, Eric Dickerson, saying thank you very loudly. Like, Eric, Tony Gonzalez is pretty much putting the spear to fucking Tom Brady's career or some shit. This is funny. This has to be a joke because it's just funny. I mean, I don't even take any of this seriously, honestly.
Because I'm not going skill. It's not skill. Okay?
We're talking about accomplishments.
Okay, talking about accomplishments. Okay, when you say athlete, I'm like, okay,
That's
wait a
what I
second.
said, athlete.
I play one-on-one against Tom.
Look at Tony Gonzalez's face while he's making this argument. He looks extremely frustrated. He looks like, well, Jesus, we're talking about Tom again. Like I said before, man, I think Tony Gonzalez is, although he was a great tight end, And he's never won the Super Bowl, although he was one of the top tight ends for a majority of his career. He just seems like one of those resentful. Sorry, he seems like one of those resentful individuals that never really got over the fact that he couldn't get the job done and his team couldn't get the job done. And, Tom Brady has completely ruled during his time, and he's still ruling long after Tony Gonzalez is gone. And I think he has a particular axe to grind with New England because, I mean, Gronk completely usurped him as one of the greatest tight ends of all time. I believe, in my opinion, Gronkowski is one of the greatest, is the greatest tight end of all time. But I mean, this dude does not have a great history with New England. I'm taking it.
I'm playing with left-handed. Jackson, he's a really good athlete. He's a professional athlete. I love Tom. But I think you have.
He doesn't love Tom. Anytime you make an asinine argument like, oh, how is he a great athlete but he can't run a 40-yard dash, when we're talking about impact on the field, and then after you make such an asinine comment, then you want to say, well, I love this guy. Anytime somebody trashes somebody the way Tony Gonzalez is trashing Tom Brady right now, and then turns around and says, I love the person, I mean, that's not real love, man. You're just trying not to look like a fucking hater on live TV or on national TV. Bro, you're a hater right now, man. Because your career didn't go according to plan. Although you were one of the greatest, statistically one of the greatest tight ends of all time, you never really got the job done. And most of these athletes, they resent Tom Brady because this dude is able to put up incredible numbers, but he's also able to win. And in their mind, they're like, why can't we have a coach like this? Or how come we can't have somebody that can put a team together that just complements my ability so well? How come we can't be consistent? How come we can't seem to get favorable calls in big games? Like, how come this dude gets it all? He has a beautiful, wealthy wife where this dude doesn't need to take a whole lot of money. He could take these pay cuts to help his team win because, his family is pretty much set in stone as far as money goes, with a beautiful family. How come I can't have this stuff? He's an extremely nice guy that everybody seems to love him when they're around him. How come I can't be like this guy? That's all it screams off to me is, why can't I be Tom Brady? And it's almost like the Michael Jordan effect, where it's just envy. All right, this went on for a while, so I'm just gonna end it here. I may do another part to this, but this is just sad, man. Tony Gonzalez is one of the greatest tight ends of all time, and for you to, after your career is over, for you to be this person on TV crying that the rules aren't fair when we're talking about some of the greatest football players of all time, and a lot of these athletes, they think that they should be the ones in consideration over Tom Brady for greatest football player ever. But it is what it is, man. All right, I'm done.